Hey everybody, Jake here from CVP. There are so many options in the affordable cinema lens space now, and in today's video I want to take a look at a set of lenses that I've been wanting to test and shoot with since they were originally announced last year. These are the Thypoch Simera-Cs. And with their attractive price of just under £900 per lens, or around £4,000-ish for the 5 lens set, they could be a really nice choice for a lot of filmmakers. But are they any good? Let's take a look. We've managed to use the Simera-Cs on a few different cameras and projects, and we all noted how much we like the image that they produce. Sam even owns the 28mm still Simera lens that these lenses are based on, which he uses with his Nikon ZF. These lenses definitely have a look to them, and haven't been designed to produce super modern clean images. They look decently sharp in the centre with fall off towards the corners, and render nice looking out of focus areas with a nice subtle swirl and a touch of chromatic aberration to them. Considering their size and weight, it's really impressive that they are T1.5, so for smaller rigs like us using them handheld on the Panasonic S1R2, they work really well but can also be configured easily with larger, more cine orientated setups. Anyway, I'm going to let a few clips play out, but let us know what you think of their look in the comments below. Currently there are 5 lenses in the Simera-C set, a 21, 28, 35, 50 and 75mm, all of which have a t-stop range of 1.5 to 16. Given this fast t1.5 maximum aperture and full frame coverage, they are incredibly compact and light lenses. The heaviest and largest two are the 21 and 75mm, and the 3 middle focal lengths are similar in weight and size. Them being this size and weight, while also having uniform gear placement for focus and iris control, will allow you to swap them out on your rig really easily without needing much adjustment. I can see these lenses being great for small compact cine style rigs, gimbal use, and even the Ronin 4D with DJI's optional M mount or E mount for it. From our experience, we were able to use all of these lenses with the 4D without the need to add a counterweight, which is really great, and I really can see these becoming popular with 4D users because of this. The Lights M08s have been very popular to use with the 4D, but they are much more expensive and now discontinued. So I'm sure these will attract 4D users wanting a similar experience to M08s, but on a much smaller budget. Considering their pretty low price, the build quality is actually pretty good. They feel well put together with nice smooth rotations of the iris and 210-degree focus ring. And if you buy the kit, you get a case which will house them all nice and securely. Its distinct design will certainly make it stand out against other black cases on set. They are currently available in Sony E or Leica M mount. We've been mainly testing the M mount versions, which are actually the mount that I would personally go for, as it's going to be the most versatile out of the two, as you can easily adapt them onto a range of mounts including E, RF, Z, X, L, DL, as well as getting them onto a range of larger cinema cameras that have M mounts available for them. M mount does take some getting used to, and with this Metabones adapter that we've used with RF cameras, we found that we have to make sure the focus is positioned a certain way to make twisting the lenses off easier. But given that this lens mount was introduced back in 1954, I think it can be forgiven that it's sometimes a bit hard to use. And I think it is worth getting used to, as it's just so much more versatile compared to E-mount. If you plan on using them across multiple systems and don't mind using an adapter, these are the ones to grab. However, if you primarily use E-mount and want the simplest and most robust setup, E-mount may be worth grabbing. At least we've got the option to choose from them both. All of these lenses have an image circle of 43.2mm, which should cover most regular size full frame sensors. But as we always do, I wanted to check how they perform exactly. So we chucked them onto a Fujifilm GFX 100 II using an M mount adapter so we can try and see how much they can cover. We have overlaid a 36x24mm frame guide on these stills so we can see how they will perform on regular 3x2 full frame sensors. Starting with the 21mm wide open, we can see they do have some illumination drop off towards the corners, but they actually cover the GFX's whole sensor surprisingly well. Stopping down to T4 really helps even out illumination across the frame though. The 28mm performs slightly better with a touch less fall off towards the corners of frame, but again stopping down really does help improve its coverage. The 35mm covers slightly less with more hard vignette towards the corners. The 50mm again has slightly less coverage, and the 75mm looks similar to the 35mm. If we focus just on full frame coverage, we can see across the range they perform really well with no hard cutting, but definitely have some fall off towards the corners wide open. Illumination is much more even towards the longer focal lengths compared to the wider ones, but overall they perform well, and if you are using a 17:9 or 16:9 format, you will get even better performance as you won't be using the extra height we can see here in 3x2. When it comes to close focus, the 21mm can focus down to 23cm or 9 inches, the 28mm to 40cm or 1 foot 4 inches, the 35 and 50mm can both focus down to 45cm or 1 foot 6 inches, and lastly the 75mm down to 55cm or 1 foot 10 inches. These are pretty standard distances, not super close but not awful, which again is actually pretty impressive given how compact they are. You can get decently close enough on each lens, and they do look to perform pretty well here too. Looking at our distortion grid shots, we can see that the 21mm has slight pincushion distortion. The 28mm looks pretty well corrected with slight pincushion, the 35 has a little bit of pincushion as well, and the 50 and 75mm look very similar with very minor moustache distortion and slight vertical pincushion towards the corners. Overall though, they're pretty well corrected, and when shooting regularly, their profiles really aren't that noticeable. The focus breathing performance of these lenses is probably the main compromise you're going to have to make with them. So if you're going to be buying or renting these lenses, make sure you're aware of how they perform so you can try and limit it in your shots if you're not a fan of it. For these examples, we are pulling focus through the entire focus range quickly, so these will look a bit more exaggerated versus a real world pull. The 21mm looks to have the least, 35mm has a good bit, and the 28, 50 and 75mm have similar strong amounts. We also wanted to show some more real world pulls so you can see how the lenses look doing more regular looking creative pulls. How important is focus breathing performance for you? Do you prefer lenses with pronounced breathing or none at all? Come let us know in our Discord. Link to join us is in the description below. When it comes to bokeh, all of the lenses have a 16 blade iris, which is great and means they produce nicely shaped out of focus elements, and a maximum aperture of t1.5, which does make them very versatile and capable of some pretty shallow depth of field imagery. Let's take a look at our controlled headshot examples where we can see how our out of focus highlights are being rendered. Starting with the 21mm wide open, we can see our out of focus highlights are cat's eye in shape with a slight swirl to them, with more aggressive shape towards the corners of frame. Stopping down to T2 results in much better shape. It's nice and round but does have a touch of cutting. We can see a bit of texture and a slightly defined edge throughout the T-stop range, and overall it looks pretty clean with minimal colour around our highlights. Wide open, the 28mm again has cat's eye shape across the frame and even in the centre somewhat. Stopping down to 2.8 helps even the shape out. We can also see a bit of colour around our highlights now, but less texture than the 21mm and a similar defined outline to them. The 35mm wide open has quite misshapen highlights, though stopping down to T2 helps even out the shape. We can see a defined edge, a touch of colour around our highlights, and pretty much no texture. The 50mm has even more aggressive swirl and cutting towards the corners. At 2.8, this misshapen cutting is reduced, and we can also see the 16 blade iris forming the shape, but it's decently round. Throughout the T-stop range, we can see that the highlights have a defined edge with a slight glow and a little bit of texture. Lastly, the 75mm has again more aggressive swirl and cutting across the frame. Stopping down to T4 helps with the overall shape. It also again has a defined edge with a slight glow and a touch of texture. Overall, across the set, they render very similarly, which is good for a lens set like this, where you want them to be as consistent as possible. They definitely lean into a more vintage look here than modern, which again is completely personal preference. A lens's flare characteristic is a very subjective thing. For these examples, we grabbed a torch and blasted down the barrel of each lens, so this is only a restricted snapshot of how they perform versus what you may see in the real world. We can see that they do show slightly different character throughout the range, with the 35mm probably being the most different out of the bunch, with very distinct circular flares, though the 50 and 75mm do also have some, but they are far more subtle. The 50 and 75mm also look to have more overall veiling glare. Let us know what you think of their flare down in the comments. If you want to keep up with all the latest and greatest kit, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you want to buy anything you see in this video, or want to get your hands on these new lenses or any other kit for that matter, head over to cvp.com where our experienced team is waiting to help you. Right, let's have a look at how these lenses can resolve our chart. For these examples, we are using our red V-Raptor 8K VV in 8K 16:9 and moving our camera further away from the chart to match framing as much as possible as we change between the different focal lengths. When shooting these tests, I pulled focus while recording wide open and at 5.6 to show how the lenses handle CA when trying to hit sharps on our chart. Starting with the 21mm wide open, we can see a little bit of CA in the center of frame as we focus, but not too much. At our focus point, it resolves well wide open with minimal CA. As we stop down in the center, we can see that the lens really improves at around 2.8. In the corners, we can see decent performance wide open, with it really improving at T4. Though there is still a touch of CA here. At 5.6, when we pull focus, we can see that the CA present wide open is pretty much gone. With the 28mm wide open when focusing, we can see much more pronounced pink and green CA as we focus compared to the 21mm. When sharp, it has decent resolving performance in the center with a touch of CA. The CA is reduced as soon as we stop down to T2, and overall contrast is improved as well. From here, it only gets better, and at T4, it looks good. At 5.6, we can see that the CA while focusing is now gone. The 35mm wide open has similar color aberration when focusing to the 28mm. However, stopping down to 5.6, this is improved. Our point of focus wide open has a little bit of CA in the center of frame. Stopping down to T2 does improve this massively though. Stopping down to 5.6, the center looks really good. In the corners, we can see CA all the way down to 5.6. The corners do also fall off compared to the center, but at 5.6, they really do improve. Wide open on the 50mm, again we can see CA as we focus, but this is less than the previous two lenses. In the center, we can see that there is a touch of CA which is reduced at 2.8. In the corners, we can see a fall off in performance wide open compared to the center. As we stop down, this does improve massively from T4 onwards. Lastly, the 75mm has clear pink and green aberration as we focus wide open. This looks like a similar amount to the 35mm. Our point of focus in the center wide open has slight pink aberration. This is improved massively at T2 though, and so is overall contrast. In the corners, we can see it performs decently well wide open, but has low contrast and slight color aberration. From T4 though, the corners really improve. Let's take a look at our transverse aberration tests, starting with the 21mm wide open. Here we can see that it's pretty clean. It has slight pinky purple color before and greeny blue after our point of focus. Stopping down to T4, this persists, but does look better than wide open overall. This color is actually consistent throughout the lenses, though they do alter in intensity slightly, with the 35mm looking the most intense. Stopping down helps with the intensity, but overall, I think they actually perform pretty well considering their designs. For our color matching test, we shot a grey card in the center of our frame across all of the lenses, and then we cropped into the card and white balanced in Resolve, noting the change between the different lenses. Looking at the results, there is certainly a slight shift in color throughout some of the lenses. So if you want 100% consistency, I suggest white balancing when you change lens, but it's not an awful shift by any means. There are definitely a few lenses on the market that I think people are going to compare the Simera-Cs to. Sure's Vision Primes, the Vignetting, and then the Cooke SP3 and Leica M08s on the higher end. The Simera-Cs sit in a pretty unique space though. Their biggest unique selling point is their size, speed, and price, which for smaller video or cine packages is going to be a real benefit. Being available only in E or M mount does limit how versatile they are compared to something like the Vignetting, which you can get in PL mount, but M mount can be adapted onto a large range of cameras via adapters. It's just not the most secure mount, especially compared to PL. But no lens is perfect, and if you're okay with the mount limitations and the focus breathing, the Simera-Cs deliver an interesting modern vintage image in a well-built, compact and light housing for an excellent price. It's honestly insane how many options we have at this end of the market now. It feels like only just a few years ago there were only a couple of options to choose from, and now there are so many that I think it actually can be a bit daunting for some people. So if you want to come in and speak to one of our knowledgeable technical consultants, get your hands on these lenses and any others that you want to look at, email demo@cvp.com today to book your appointment at one of our fantastic showrooms, either in the UK or Europe. Anyway, let us know if you have any other questions in the comments. And if you like the video, please give it a like and maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on our awesome upcoming content. And thank you so much for watching.